China could use Bitcoin as financial weapon against the US, Peter Thiel warns. One of the founders of PayPal and a major startup founder around the world, Peter Thiel cautioned that China could potentially use Bitcoin as a financial weapon against the US. While Thiel is a fan of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, he said, "Even though I'm a pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin maximalist person, I do wonder whether at this point Bitcoin should also be thought of in part as a Chinese financial weapon against the US. It threatens fiat money, but it especially threatens the US dollar." Dan Eve, your thoughts on China using Bitcoin against the US?
Well, it's obviously it's quite an interesting and topical take at the moment. Obviously, with the controversy over the PBOC building their own central bank digital currency, which is also possibly going to take on the dollar. But I think generally, the biggest war is the money printing war. That's the biggest threat to any other currency. Is the ability for one currency to print another one. And although it devalues it, it doesn't kind of do it so sharply. And so I think, it's almost, I see it as an act of war, being able to just print loads of money and then be able to use that money to buy assets in other countries, for example, and build up, essentially, assets that you wouldn't have if you didn't print that money out of thin air. So Bitcoin really is just a threat to any global currency, and specifically the US, because of the fact that the dollar is, still the biggest index for oil and everything. So, I think it's interesting that Peter Thiel has kind of come out and said something that's a bit critical of Bitcoin, but also he still declares himself as a maximalist. So it's also, I see a positive that he's able to see, where some of the threats could be to Bitcoin, and also to, he's not, what's the word? He's not scared to voice those. And he's obviously, as a Bitcoin proponent, confident enough that although it could be a threat to the US dollar, this could be more of a prod to, the US, the SEC, and to get them to actually buy more. And the Fed, to buy Bitcoin. If it's a threat, you don't, and you can't kill the threat because you can't kill Bitcoin, then you get the US to buy Bitcoin in order to hedge against the dollar going down. And that was kind of one of my old school conspiracy theories, was that maybe the CIA, for example, invented Bitcoin to hedge against the dollar eventually going. And so that million Bitcoin is actually, is owned by the US. And so they're kind of, every now and then they're playing the markets. But ultimately they're sat on a million Bitcoin that is used to hedge against the rest of the rest of the world, slowly taking a percentage of the dollar.
The friend of my enemy is also my friend. Jed Grant, your thoughts on China and Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think China has so much mining power as well. It's kind of, people are afraid of that, but I don't think that's a bad thing at all. It'll get diversified, and China is trying to take down the dollar in any way they can. I just think it is exactly as you just said, Thomas. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and China looks at Bitcoin as maybe a tool that helps it achieve a different dominant fiat currency, whether that's their CBDC or some garbage they cook up with a block of Russia, China, Iran, who knows, but they're all going to be shit coins at the end of the day, and I don't think they're going to take Bitcoin down. So we're pretty good.
Martin Wismar.
Yeah, I think in general, Bitcoin is a threat to fiat currencies, because just like the internet gave everybody a voice, Bitcoin gives everybody a wallet. So the internet caused monopolies of information, like state television and stuff, to basically crumble and break down. And the same thing will happen with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but primarily Bitcoin, breaking down the monopoly that governments have around the world on printing money. But to state that it is China, it's a Chinese weapon, I don't agree on that. Even though a lot of mining power is concentrated in China, Bitcoin is a system based on distrust. Nobody trusts each other, everybody will want to grab their part of the pie, and they will not cooperate with each other to start 51% attacks, because they would hurt their own wallets, and they won't do that. So yes, it might be a danger to fiat currencies, but it's not specifically a Chinese weapon. I disagree with. That's just the China FUD in a different package.
We can't forget that Peter Thiel is got the Nixon seal of approval when he said that.
If you can't trust Nixon, who can you trust? Josh Shigala.
I think Dan took the words right out of my mouth. You pretty much said it all, mate. The thing is that what I would add to it is that China isn't a threat. Bitcoin isn't a threat to the US dollar. The Federal Reserve is a threat to the US dollar. They're just screwing it up. Politicians, and China is a threat to their own Federal Reserve, or their own bank, their own central bank. And the same with the ECB. The ECB is just printing like crazy. They're all just printing mad, and it's great for them. They can buy real world assets. They can buy islands off of Greece. They can buy acropolises. They can buy property, all for just minting treasuries and borrowing against them. So it's all a nonsense. It's all ridiculous. The thing that you have to do is buy real assets. If Peter Thiel was right, and then gold and silver is also a threat to, and some say it is, and that's why we have groups saying that the silver has been manipulated for years, being pushed down by naked shorts, the likes of JP Morgan and such. But and that there's definitely a lot of proof that is the case. So maybe he's right, but at the end of the day, what people need to do now is see that and understand what he's actually saying. And what he's actually saying is get the hell out of any fiat, get into rare assets. Get into rare assets, folks. If you're holding a lot of these currency units in the bank, you're basically saving in a unit of account rather than an asset. And you don't save in a unit of account because there's infinite unit of accounts. They always used to say that Bitcoin was tulips. What the real tulip is fiat. That's the real tulip, folks. So and that's what Peter Thiel's saying, is that's not a tulip. So that's the threat. I think Bitcoin, the biggest threat Bitcoin is for little economies, countries that have small economies, and the citizenry could actually borrow like hell and start buying Bitcoin without not caring if they bankrupt themselves, because they don't care if they've got a black mark on their name. They've got Bitcoin now, and that is an attack vector for smaller economies. But yeah.
Exit question: Is Bitcoin a weapon for China FUD better than energy FUD? Is this the new #1 FUD, even better than Bitcoin is just for drugs FUD back in the day? Dan, Eve.
I think so. I think that the only kind of, well, I suppose that and the greenness is the only kind of viable thing at the moment. It's and especially where Bitcoin is every now and then you're seeing people tweet about it, gazumping, a whole country's money supply. I think that's going to slowly bring people to realize that slowly, but like a slap in the face, it hits you, as it jumps up, that it's going to take over all the world currencies. So it's just a case of how long it takes for that to happen before people go, we can't stop the trade. If we can't stop it,